Hey guys, welcome to another presentation here with the Football Scoop Online Clinic. We've got Alex Kline, the Director of Recruiting and High School Relations at Akron. I want to give Alex all the time we can. So Alex, why don't you take it away? You got the floor, man.
All right, thanks, Doug. Just before we get going here, just want to make sure that everybody out there staying safe through this time. I know it's a different time. No one's really been exposed to anything like this, but hopefully you're able to find something positive in it. That's what we're preaching to our team on a day-to-day basis is let's change our perspective on this and let's find a way that we can make ourselves better from this obstacle that's in our way just by altering our perspective in any way that we can. So just from the entire Akron football program and university, want to make sure that everybody's staying safe and they continue to as we move forward with this all together. So just as Doug reiterated, I just want to make sure, introduce myself and what I'm going to talk about. My name's Alex Kline. I'm the Director of Recruiting and High School Relations at the University of Akron. And what we're going to do today is talk to you a little bit about recruiting to a culture. And just to give an overview of what this presentation is going to look like, first I'll start by giving a little bit about my background, where I'm from, where I've coached, and then we'll really talk about recruiting to a culture, some of the things that are important to us at the University of Akron, and really will help guide the rest of the presentation with that understanding and just really being able to see it through our lens as we move forward. And then we'll talk about the recruiting process as a whole, because a lot of people might not be too familiar with the in-depth detail that goes into it. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll really talk about our evaluation process and how we tie that in with what we're looking for and how we're looking to build our culture. So we'll talk about a character evaluation and then also a prospect evaluation report based on skill. And I'll show you both ways that we're able to really dive into that and get what we're looking for in a potential student athlete. And then we'll just touch a little bit on a roster breakdown, some of the trends since we've taken over in 2019, and then our social media presence, because I think our creative team has just done an absolutely incredible job building that up to what it is now. And I think it's only going to get better as we move forward. So like I was saying, Director of Recruiting and High School Relations here at Akron. I'm originally from the Pittsburgh area, right out in the North Hills. Went to North Catholic High School back before it was in Cranberry Township, back when it was up on Troy Hill. And then from there, I was fortunate enough to go to John Carroll University, located on the east side of Cleveland. There I received a business management degree. And then after that, I was able to get my master's degree at St. Vincent College. And so that's also where I started my coaching career, which is what I'll get into now. So I started at St. Vincent College right after I graduated. I spent 2 years there as a graduate assistant, but it was also the wide receivers coach. And then I spent 2 years as the offensive coordinator, also coaching the wide receivers, and was also the assistant strength and conditioning coach. And I couldn't be more grateful for Ron Dolciato, who was the head football coach at that time. He was my offensive coordinator while I was at John Carroll. Took the head coaching job at St. Vincent and decided to bring me along with him. So I'm forever grateful for that. And then after my time at St. Vincent College, I moved on to the University of Pittsburgh, where I started actually in the recruiting department, fortunate enough for Graham Wilbert, who is the current director of player personnel there, and also Carlo Zovko, who was an assistant at the time. They brought me in. I was very fortunate for that. And then right before the season started, they actually moved me over to the offensive side of the ball, where I was working in a quality control role with the quarterbacks, and the offensive coordinator at the time and quarterbacks coach, Sean Watson. Again, extremely grateful for him and giving me that opportunity. And then also Coach Pat Narduzzi, who I have the utmost respect for, and allowing me to do what I did there in the 2018 season, where we were able to win the Coastal Championship. That was something really special and something that meant a lot to me at the time and will continue to as I move through my career. And then that's what brought me to the University of Akron. It was January of 2019 when Coach Tom Arth, who was at Tennessee Chattanooga at the time, took the head coaching job at the University of Akron. And he gave me a call in January and asked me if I wanted to join the staff. And fortunately for me, I had played for Coach Tom Arth, so I knew what he was about as a coach already, as a head football coach. and it was in the Northeast Ohio area, which I was very fond of. And so again, very grateful that he gave me that call, and I pretty much without hesitation accepted that thing and got the ball rolling as soon as I could. So that's really my background, my education and coaching background. So let's dive right into what I'm going to talk about today, which is recruiting to a culture. And like I said, the new head coach at the University of Akron, now we're in our second year coming up. And the one thing that he does just an outstanding job of is clearly defining what our culture is, what our vision statement is, what our mission statement is. It's one of the things that we instill in our guys on a day-to-day basis, whether we're sending out something relating to that via text or it's in our team meetings whenever we are all back on campus. It's something that we want to make sure that we're ingraining in our guys every single day. And so I'm not going to bore you with what exactly it all is, but our vision statement, just talking about preparing our graduates to be successful, to be leaders in whatever fields they choose to study. And then our mission statement is creating the most exciting and competitive learning environment that we possibly can at the University of Akron, and changing our mindset on how we approach everything that we do, really taking the words have to and replacing them with get to in every single thing that we do in every aspect of our football program. And then our way. I know if you guys follow us on social media, you'll probably see this at the end of every single tweet that we put out there. And it's really what we believe in. I think it encompasses everything that our head coach stands for and wants our guys to stand for as well. And the short version of it is excellence, belief, and will. And what that really means is it's a passionate commitment to excellence, giving everything that we can in everything that we do, and then a relentless belief in ourselves more than anything, and then a tireless will to compete to the best of our God-given ability. And we want to make sure that our guys are exposed to this every single day. And that's why we have it all over our team room. That's why we have it all over our facility, down in the locker room. It's something that's so important to us. And like I told the team whenever I first got there, is I was fortunate enough to have played in that culture where our way was what we stood for, and just seeing the impact it made on people's lives really is life-changing. You just see some of the things that my teammates are doing now is remarkable, and I want them to all be able to experience that as well. So, but the first thing is they got to be able to buy into it, but we're trying to let them know about it every single day that we can. And then our core values, which are what every decision that we make is based on, not just as a football program and within football related businesses and transactions, but really in everything that we do on a day-to-day basis. We want to make sure that we keep those core values, which are humility, respect, gratitude, integrity, courage, execution. We want to keep those at the forefront of every single decision that we're making in our lives. And then you also probably see here to develop a lot as well, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to instill our way and our core values into every single one of our players, but we also want to be able to develop them that way as well. And we take that personally. That's what we feel our main goal as teachers, as leaders, as coaches, is to make sure that we instill that in those guys and develop them that way. And then the biggest way that we want to be able to do that, aside from just talking about it, is we want to be about it as well. So that's why we live this culture every single day in everything that we do as a staff. And I think that's so important in this transition phase of a program being year one, is we got to live this every day, because we need our guys to buy in to what it will do for them and the changes that it will make, both just in their personal lives and on the field as well. And so, it's huge for our players as well. And then with the guys that we recruit, when we bring guys up to campus, we want to make sure that they know and they see what we're all about, and they're going to get a great taste of the exact way that we're going to treat them the moment that they walk in the doors as student athletes here in our program. So that's just so important for us. And you see I put risk guys up here on the presentation, because the stronger your locker room is, the more flexibility you have to take a risk on a guy who, once we go through our evaluation procedure, which is heavily involved in our character evaluation piece, you'll be able to see now these guys become a lot more prevalent as guys that we can bring into our program. And I know one of the best examples of it, part of a book I'm reading right now, is whenever the Patriots acquired Randy Moss. And the big thing about them was, and Belichick and his decision to bring Randy Moss on, I think it was 2012 or whatever, was their culture in their locker room was so strong that they knew that somebody coming into it could not derail it from what it ultimately was or where it was going. So it gave you that ability to bring a guy like that in who was clearly not an issue for them at all and had the ultimate success on the field, I think scoring 23 touchdowns or whatever it was on the way to an undefeated regular season and 1-loss overall season. And then that also goes into then finding the right fit and building a team, because at the end of the day, we're not just looking to acquire a bunch of guys that have talent. Like, we're looking to build a program and we're looking to build a team. And one of the things that myself, Coach Feeney, Coach Rodriguez, we constantly harp on is the fact that, yeah, we got to find guys that are right for our culture, which I think we do a really good job of being able to identify those guys through our character evaluation procedure, which I'll get into. But also, you got to find the right guys that can transition your culture, that are going to be able to withstand the point where we're at right now, but also where it's going to be and where we know it's capable of getting to. So it's a fine line, and it's difficult, but it's something that we put a premium on with every single guy that we're looking to sign come signing day. So it's something that's so important, and it really is dependent on where you are as a program and how much you have to take that into consideration. And then just roster management wise there's always numbers. It's all about numbers. You got to be able to solidify a roster, right? You got to be able to have depth at each position. And this is a needs list by position that is ever changing, because you might go into a season thinking that you need X amount of guys at this position, but based on the outcome of the season and the production of whatever position it is, you might realize that your needs are more based on that position than you originally thought. And so that's something, like I said, an ever-changing list that's always being taken into consideration. And it could be different just based on where you are as a team, where you are as a roster, where you are as a program, because in the early years of a program, you might not have the liberty of turning down a guy just because, hey, you might be over at this number. You might only need 6 outside linebackers, but this would make 8. But this is a game-changing type football player. So you want to take those guys because you're not at the liberty to turn good football players down, especially the guys that meet all your requirements character-wise and also skill evaluation-wise. Like, numbers at that point, especially in the early years, might not be as prevalent, whereas in the later years when you have a more established roster, where you have a little bit of depth, and that might be something that you're recruiting to. You might be recruiting to depth at a certain position, which is really important. But so it depends on where you are as a program. And then the win within 5, that's something as we get into the roster breakdown, it's something that we want to do. That's talking about winning the recruiting battle within 5 hours of where you're located. And unfortunately, we're in the great state of Ohio that just has a historic tradition of producing outstanding football players. So we couldn't be more grateful and fortunate that we're in this area and have this liberty of the football players that we do right here in our own backyard. So we really want to be where our feet are. We want to win these recruiting battles up here because we know the type of kids that this area is able to produce. And that extends past the Ohio area as well. And we really like to dive into Western PA, up into Detroit, Michigan, a little bit farther west of Michigan as well. So it's just important that we identify our regions and really want to win those battles in those locations. And then at the end of the day, it's all about relationships and building trust to develop those relationships, because it's a long process. And I'll get into that, just exactly how long it is. But we got to make sure the guys that we're recruiting know who we are, how they're going to be treated, and vice versa. We got to know who they are, the type of guys that they're going to be whenever they walk through our doors and become student athletes within our program. So all of that is just vital and extremely important. And so the relationship aspect of it is crucial when you're talking about getting the right guys for your culture. So this brings me into the recruiting process, because a lot of you guys might not be all the way familiar with what the recruiting process looks like. And you can see up here, I put the bloodline because it's something that needs to be running through your organization at all times at a high level in order to have any success. Like, if you don't have the recruiting aspect of it, like, you don't have life within your program. And I know the other expression you guys have probably heard a lot is when you compare recruiting to shaving. Recruiting, very similar to shaving. If you don't do it every single day, you're going to look like a bum. And the more you get into this business, the more you stay in this business, you realize that couldn't be more accurate. So I'm just going to give you an abbreviated version of what the recruiting process will look like. And there's a few things that have changed this over the years. A, being the multiple signing days, having a December and a February signing day, because we were fortunate enough, we signed 20 of our 25 initials during that December signing day, which really gave us a lot more flexibility come wintertime, come that January recruiting cycle, to go out there and prepare for the next class, which was a huge benefit for us. And then just also the exposure that these kids are getting via huddle tape, social media, and with the relationships we have with high school coaches, and them being able to put out their information a lot earlier in their high school careers, as opposed to just maybe after their junior years. A lot of guys that have success, or that they're going to have success after their sophomore year, those guys, they get into the laps of college coaches a lot earlier than before. So just to take you through a typical recruiting process, say for a kid that's just finishing up his junior year of high school. So once the wintertime comes, that's when we'll send our coaches out on the road. And this is an area-specific recruiting process. So we have our 10 full-time coaches, and then the head coach during the winter recruiting cycle, they're all out on the road. So what we do, we send these guys out area-specific. And it's important for our head coach, Tom Arth. It's important for our entire staff to make sure that our staff is heavily involved in our recruiting regions, like I mentioned earlier, talking about the state of Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, Michigan. So our entire staff has a piece of that pie. And so when we go out in the winter and talking about our area, that's where we go. Those are the high school coaches that we go and see. And the biggest piece of information that we're getting when we go and recruit area-wise is we're getting a character evaluation report, which is what the next slide is. And I'll go into a lot more detail of that, but it shows just how important your character is, your makeup is off the field, and then also the relationships that we have with high school coaches. They're just crucial. And I'll get into a lot more detail with that. And then also we're trying to get people up for campus visits. During the winter cycle, we'll have what we call elite junior visits, where we have guys targeted. We want to bring the better guys that the high school coaches are recommending, or that we've seen already, maybe came up to a game day visit or whatnot, or just we're able to see during whatever, a Friday night game, whatever it might be, whatever the case. And we want to get these guys up on campus and give them a unique experience. So that way, not only are we getting to know them, but they're being able to see exactly what it is that the University of Akron can offer them, and really who we are as a staff. Because I think we do it more unique than anybody in the country, in my opinion, is the way that we collaborate as a staff, the cohesiveness that we share as a staff is second to none. And I think people can feel that, people sense that the moment they walk on campus. And it's something special, and I know we take a lot of pride in it, and that's why it's so important for us to get guys onto campus. And then this leads you into the spring recruiting. So once we're able to bring back all that information, all the area coaches are able to get all their information, all the guys in their area, then they pass that through our recruiting procedure, our pipeline, for lack of a better term. So it goes from our area coaches to the position coaches, to the coordinators, to the head coach, if deemed necessary. So if an area coach likes a guy and the guy gets checked off, checks all the boxes character-wise, then he'll pass him along to the position coach. And if the position coach, who will see his character evaluation, also likes him as a football player, will then pass him on to the coordinator. And then the coordinator, who will also see the character evaluation report, likes him as a football player, that's when he'll pass him on to the head coach and myself. And at that point, the position coach, coordinator, and head coach all separately we'll put together what we call the position stacks. So we put together really from what we feel the most valuable guys at this position are, all the way to, I don't want to say the least valuable, but just from top to lowest, how we rank these guys in terms of, okay, the guys that we want to take and become a part of our football program right now to guys that we need to maybe see a little bit more information on. But the one thing I can say while we go through this entire procedure is that the character portion of it is in front of every single one of our faces the entire time. So that's something that is always taken into consideration regardless of skill. The character piece is going to be there. So after we're able to really stack these guys, this brings you to the spring recruiting portion of it, where now the head coach is not allowed on the road, but the 10 full-time position coaches, they are. And at this point, because we've been able to really get a good area sense, we've been able to stack these guys, now we can be very selective. We can be very targeted in who we're going to see. So position coaches will go see the top guys at their position. Coordinators will go see the top guys at either side of the football. And then we'll all report all that information back to myself and the head coach. We're sitting in the office really then finalizing who we feel the top guys at each position are after those position coaches and coordinators are able to go and get those live evals and re-upping those relationships with those high school coaches. And so it's something that's it's a long drawn out process, but it's very diligent in what we're doing. And then that leads you to your summer camps, because there's guys that you're going to identify as wanting to see a little bit more information on. So you want to get them to camp and see how they perform there in that live evaluation scenario. And then also you want to start getting these guys up for official visits. And whenever it comes to getting a guy up for an official visit, that's where our prospect evaluation report comes in. So when we stack these guys, when we rank these guys by position, we're using more of our generic rating scale, giving them a color and then putting them into a category that way. When we go over a prospect evaluation report, that's a very in-depth, detailed evaluation of each player. And that's something we do for our current players as well. Everybody in our program has that done by the position coach and coordinator. And again, I'll get into that in 2 slides here. But then with the hopes, if they don't commit there, you keep bringing them up for game day visits. And if they don't official visit during the summer, you're able to get them up at the end of the fall season, right into that beginning portion of the winter evaluation period before signing day. And just in 1 year, just to show you guys the effects, what we've been able to do with this procedure and this outline is we've brought in over 2,200 student athletes and their families up to campus. And that's just in the year 2019. So this includes all of our junior days, our walk-on visits, spring practices, the game visits, summer camps. You can see the numbers down here at the bottom, but it's a remarkable feat, and it's a huge tribute to our staff being able to go out there, identify guys, and attract them to get to campus to really see what we're all about. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that they're understanding who we are. So we want to promote ourselves in the best way possible. So that's a little bit about the recruiting process. Now let me go into that character evaluation report, which I was talking about, which plays just such an important role in our evaluation, in bringing guys, deciding who the guys that we're going to have join our team. Like, this is it. So the biggest thing I want to stress, and I know I'll reiterate it again because I referred to it in the last slide, is the relationship with your high school coach is everything. A lot of times people ask me, they direct message me saying, hey, how do I get recruited? What's the best way for me to get recruited? Well, start by getting your high school coach to give you a valuable recommendation, because at the end of the day, that's going to carry way more weight than you putting your videos, your workout videos into a coach's or a recruiting personnel member's direct messages. Like, the high school coach's word is everything. And so when we go out on the road and looking for these character evaluation reports, you can see I have an example of one right here to the right. And I know it's hard to read, so I also put those headings underneath where it says prospect character evaluation. So at the very top, you're going to put all their information, their name, their height, weight, size, whatever they record, right? Whatever the coach tells you. And then underneath that, this is pretty much going to guide the conversation that we're going to have with the high school coaches. Because at the end of the day, we feel if we can get this information, this is going to give us what we need to make a determination if this guy's going to fit with what we're building as a culture, the type of people that we want to be associated with the University of Akron football team. So that's why this is everything. And I'll just go over the headings. So the first one we're going to look for is your family background and risk factors. So we're going to have the coach give us any information that would fall under this category. And any patterns of behavior, judgment, any incidents that have come up since he's been coaching them. What about our football background? Is it a guy that's been playing since he was peewee, or is it a guy that just started playing last year? Leadership, team orientation. Is he a team captain? Like, does he lead drills during position-specific workouts, whatever it might be? His work ethic. Does this guy put in extra effort? Like, does his habits reflect his goals of playing Division I collegiate football? Football learning. Like, does this guy, how does he learn? Is he more of a watch film? Is he more of a walkthrough? Is he more of a person, like, go through it once and then learn from his mistakes on film? However it is, we want to learn what type of learner this guy is. And then we're going to talk about academics. There's no doubt about it. That's a huge portion of it. So we're going to talk about not only your grades, your test scores, when you're taking that test, but also, do you go to school? Are you there every single day? Okay, not only are you just there every day, but are you showing up late every other day? So all this stuff we're going to take into consideration, and then we're going to look at your past injury evaluation, seeing if you've played injured, if you have any serious injuries. And then at the end, if we do have a live evaluation, we'll put that on the bottom there as well. But this is just such a crucial piece of the puzzle whenever it comes to signing a potential football player at the University of Akron. And the one thing, like this, all of this information that we gather is all recorded in our database. So that's why whenever I say, when we put these guys in order, from like when we rank these guys and we stack them, like these are the guys, like all this information is right there for every single coach to see anytime their profile's pulled up. So it's so important, and it's something that's always being taken into consideration, because really we feel we can get all this information. If we can get all this information, our coaching staff's going to be able to make the best decision possible, because unfortunately there's no universal truths to recruiting and character. There's not a do's and don'ts list. It's really all on a player by player basis. So what we can do is gather as much information as possible and then make the best decision appropriately from there. And then just talking a little bit out the bottom here, just like your character carries more weight than talent, because we truly believe that if you have poor character in the locker room, that can make more of an impact on a team than a highly skilled player on the field. Now it's a negative impact, but more of an impact nonetheless. So that's why this is such a valuable piece to what we do. Now we go into our prospect evaluation process. And so now this is before we decide, okay, are we bringing these guys up for official visits, and are these guys takes that we want to have sign national letters of intent, whether it's December or February. So you can see this is a very detailed procedure as well. And not only do we do this for the guys that we're looking to sign, but we do this for every single player in our program. So the position coach does this, and also the coordinator will do this for every single position. And it gives you an idea of how these are going to blend, because this is the culture that we're creating as a football player. This is the type of football player that we're looking for. So when we're talking about bringing guys into our culture as football players, like they need to fit the bill, and we need to see what their role will be, especially comparatively speaking to the guys that we already have on our team. So this plays a huge part of it as well. So I'll just kind of go through it. At the top, you put all the players' information. And then if you go to the 3 boxes right underneath where it says exposures, it's broken into 3 categories, and these are huge. So your major factors, your critical factors, and position skills. So your major factors, these are program-wide. This is what every single football player in your program needs to possess in order to play effectively at the University of Akron. So I'll just go through them a little bit. First one you have is athletic ability. So they're not just looking for athletes, but football players with athletic ability. Then you got strength and explosion. But don't confuse weight room numbers for strength and explosion. We're talking about guys who have functional strength on the football field. Then competitiveness, because competitiveness is a core fundamental value of what we want in a football player. And this carries both not just on the field, but how competitive is this guy in the classroom? So a lot of this stuff you're being able to answer from that character portion of the evaluation process. Then toughness. Like, has this guy shown the ability to play through pain? Like, or does he take weeks off if he's not feeling 100%. Then you got unselfishness. Is he going to take on a role that might not be ideal for him, but is better for the team? Then you got your mental learning. Like how well does this guy process information? Is he pick up things quickly? How does he learn? Again, points of reference from the character evaluation. And then you have your personal behavior. So a direct reflection of what the character evaluation report. And so this is something that is standard for every single person that we're looking to recruit in our program, and also the guys that we already have in it. So then that leads you to your critical factors. So critical factors are based on position, but aren't necessarily specific to our scheme or what we do as a football team. So these are just more general. To play the position, you need these. So the example I have up here, I have a wide receiver prospect evaluation report. And so you can see the 3 critical factors that are required for every single wide receiver to play at the collegiate level, regardless of the system, is: do you have catchability? Do you have the ability to extend and pluck? Are you a hands catcher? And then when you rate that, what's the next one? It's hard to read over here. Sorry. Second one you got is separation. Get open. Do you have the ability to create separation both at the stem of your route, at the top, at the break point of your route, and also as you're leaving your route? And then also your run after catch ability. Do you have the ability to be a playmaker? When the ball's in your hands, are you a guy that's just going to catch the ball and be tackled where you're at? Or are you going to have the ability to make somebody miss and create more yardage with the ball in your hands? And then it goes into position skills. So now the position skills are specific to what we look for in our system. So a few of the examples, just playing speed. It's like, how do you get off the football? Like, what's your acceleration in and out of your breaks? What about route running? Like, what's your release look like? What do you look like at the break point? Are your eyes down at your target the entire time? Are you keeping your arms moving? Are you able to sink your hips, transition your weight, and get out of a break? What about tracking and adjusting? So tying into the catchability, like, are you able to locate the football down the field, run under it for a less than accurate throw, and make a catch? Playmaking ability. When you do catch the football, are you able to make somebody miss? Also, on third down, are you a target? Are you a guy that we want to target to catch the football in critical situations on a game on a 3rd and 10, which is, it could go either way. Or really more 3rd and 4 to 6, which is more biased for both offense and defense, can go either way. Like, are you a guy that we're going to target? Then you got physicality. Like, are you a physical route runner? Do you avoid contact in your stem, or do you embrace it? And what about as a blocker? Because this is crucial. If you can't block, you can't play. So how well what's your willingness to go out there and block? And then special teams value, especially as a wide receiver, like, this needs to be a premium for you to be a part of our program and really to see the field. So again, those are what we're really looking at. That's what we're rating. And then this is all on a 1 through 9 scale. And each number is associated with a word, 9 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. So when you talk about a 9, that's someone that you're putting a rare connotation to it. And you go 8, you're going excellent. 7, very good. 6, good. 5, above average. 4, average. 3, below average. 2, reject. 2 is poor. And then 1 is reject. So now, as you're talking about somebody's major factors, critical factors, and position skills, when you associate that word with it, now everybody in your building knows what you're talking about. So if you talk about somebody having good catchability, you know it's a 6 in our rating scale. So it gives a consistency of language throughout the entire program, which I think is very beneficial. And then this leads you to the final rating, which is a very detailed graph that we take all these numbers into consideration, and that gives you your role. Because at the end of the day, we got to find a role for you. Like, what's your role going to be in our program? And that goes in the presentation of as well. So whenever you are presenting this information, you're talking about, okay, based on all this information that I filled up above, okay, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? And then what is my role? And that rating will be a direct reflection of what your role is. And then there's a few other things here at the top. Just your stick rating. So you give a number rating there, and then your ducks. That's what type of competitor you are. Are you a dominator, which is the best of the best? Like, you think of guys like Michael Jordan and Tom Brady. Then are you an ultra competitor who's just like a step underneath that dominator? And then you have your competitor. And then the S is your survivor, a guy. And so like, you don't want to be categorized in that, but it's something that we take into consideration. A lot of that's not only based on how you play, but what your coach says about you. So it's huge. So that's the prospect evaluation report. So now I just want to talk a little bit about our roster breakdown and some of the trends since we've gotten here, because it is important. Like I said, we want to win within 5. We want to be able to dominate in our region. We want to be as successful as possible in the state of Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, Detroit, Michigan, because of the caliber of football player that we know we can get out of this area. So just to take a look at it, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this, but when we inherited this roster back in the spring of 2019, 42% of the makeup was from the state of Ohio, 29 was from Florida, and then only 6% from the state of Pennsylvania. And then you can just see, if you go all the way to the right, this upcoming season, we're projected to have 52% of our roster made up from the state of Ohio. Florida, not saying anything bad with it, but it is farther away, and we don't have as many relationships with coaching staffs down there as we do up here and with the state of Georgia. And then a lot of the roster, that junior and senior class that we had, was from the state of Florida. And then so you can see that's down 10%. Pennsylvania is going to be up 9%, and the state of Georgia up 8%. So you can just see the growth in Ohio is up 10%, which is huge. And that's something that we want to continue to grow as we continue to move forward, and really targeting it specifically to Northeast Ohio, because this is truly where we are. And we inherited a roster in the spring of 2019 that had 3 players on scholarship from the state of Ohio, from the Northeast portion of Ohio. And now this upcoming season for the fall 2020, we will have a total of 25 players. So just an incredible job by Coach Tommy Zagorski, Coach Arth, who is from the state of Ohio, a St. Ignatius graduate, played at John Carroll before going to the NFL and having his tenure there. So I just think it speaks volumes to the effort and the consistency that we're able to put in that area, and something that we're extremely proud of moving forward. And then the bottom portion here, I wanted to add into it because I think walk-ons are such a crucial part to any program. Similar to recruiting, like, you need to have a good walk-on program in order to have success, because walk-ons do so much value for your program, a lot of the value that you don't see every single Saturday. And when we inherited the roster, we had 26 total walk-ons, and now we'll have 60 come the start of the fall 2020 season, and 21 of those guys being from the state of Ohio. So something that we want to make sure that we put an emphasis on is having great walk-ons in our program. And we give our guys a lot of ability to earn scholarships, which is part of the culture that we want to create as well. Having the guys that we have walking on the program realize if they do everything right, we can put you on scholarship. And that's what we were able to do. Just even this off season, we added 8 guys to scholarship, and 8 walk-ons were put on scholarship. And they weren't all freshmen. There were some upperclassmen mixed in there as well. So it's something that you have the ability to do within our program. And then the social media presence, just because it's so prevalent in today's game, so prevalent in recruiting, so prevalent in just promoting of your program. And it's something that not just us, but every single team in college football has had to adapt to. And I think our staff does a tremendous job of it. I just want to make sure I shout out our creative media team, really Rich Warsaw, who's our director of research and analytics. He's the guy that makes it all go. Like, not only can he put together an entire yearly plan for creative media and putting content out there, but he can also scheme you up on 3rd and 7 to 10. So having a guy like that is just so valuable in our organization. And then the guys that are doing a lot of the legwork, he's the only full-time guy. The rest are students. Let me put that out there. You got Lou Williams, Nick Carillon, you have Tristan, you have Scott, you have Malik, you have Corey, all students at the University of Akron who have done an outstanding job promoting our program and producing content for recruits to hear. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure we're giving them all that information and they're able to really get a good look of what we are as a program. So just to go through some of the numbers, with 24% annual Twitter growth in 2019, 8.15 engagement rate in collegiate football, the average is 2%. So they've done a tremendous job of getting our name out there. We established an Instagram, and then we're projected to have 15 million impressions in 2020. And this is just a huge part of the game. I know recruiting, there's so much of recruiting is based on social media. So what we want to do is make sure that we're reflecting our culture in every single thing that we put out there, every single thing that we do. And the recruiting dynamic of it is just astronomically important. You can't even really put it into words because every kid is on social media. When I talk about adaptability, people aren't getting their news sources from the way they did 10, 15 years ago. Everything's on their phone now. And so we need to be able to buy into that and kind of play a huge role in helping make ourselves accessible through that social media platform, that means of acquiring information. So that's really it. That's how we're going to leave it off. We're going to leave it up for questions. If anybody has anything, I know we no longer are live, but if there's anything that you guys need, would love for you to reach out to me. I'd love to chat it up with you guys. Make sure you follow me on Instagram or let's go Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at Kline Alex. I know I was tagged in this, but I want to be a resource for anybody here who's looking for information. I really do. I think what we do is special at the University of Akron. We have a great head coach in Tom Arth. We have great coordinators in Tommy Zagorski, Chris Hurd, and Matthew Feeney. We have great position coaches all the way around who genuinely care for every single thing that we're doing. And we want to be a resource for you guys, and we want to show you what we're all about. So thank you, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. Again, reach out to me on Twitter. Hope to hear from you guys soon.
Good call. I came up with a couple questions. I really thought there was a lot of value in your the character evaluation part and the depth you went into in that. But I think in the eyes of your staff, what's the best thing a high school coach can say about a recruit that you guys are interested in? Like, are there a couple things that are just like?
Yeah, I'd say the one thing, because I think it encompasses a lot of what we look for, is like, does this guy love football? I think that's going to answer a lot of questions about his unselfishness as a football player, about what his work habits are going to reflect. I think if you genuinely love what you're doing, it's not looked at as work, because at the collegiate level, there's a lot of time invested into being a collegiate football player. There's no doubt about it. And so when you genuinely love the sport and you love what you're doing, it's not looked at as much of as a task as it is an opportunity for what it is you get to do every single day, and that's play the game of football. And so if you love football, that'll carry so much weight as you move forward in the evaluation process.
Yeah. So on that same token, any kind of phrases that are red flags for you guys? Anything come to mind?
Phrases, I don't know. Yeah, any hesitation, first of all.
Right.
I think our staff does a really good job. If you start hesitating on answers, you can kind of see through it, and our staff does a really good job at that. But when you get guys that are missing stuff, not football practice, it's very rare that a kid misses high school football practice. But when the kid misses a lot of classes, like that's a red flag, because you need to embody the student part of being a student athlete just as much as you do the athlete part. And so whenever you get a guy that, boom, started missing classes, okay, like, we want guys that are competitive, not just on the field, but off the field. And being competitive off the field is going to lead to you not missing classes, you wanting to sit in the front row, you wanting to get really good grades. And so whenever we see that, that's automatically a red flag with a lot of guys that we're looking to recruit.
You guys really do a really nice job social media wise. I think I speak for a lot of guys. You look back 10, 15 years ago, and creative departments weren't, like, they didn't really exist in college football. It's kind of not necessarily the new wave, but something that didn't exist a while ago. Every program has to have one now. Do you have any advice for high school or small college guys hoping to use that avenue better? I know there's some programs have their branded hashtags and things like that, but any thoughts in that direction?
Yeah, it's tough, because really we have a lot of students that are running our creative department, and it's, like you said, such a valuable piece of the puzzle in every single program, because some schools, they'll have an entire budget allocated towards it, whereas other schools, you have a work study fund. And so finding guys, being able to promote it through your players, that's a lot how we got a couple of the guys, is our players were able to find guys that love to create content and love to create media, and then selling them like what being a part of your culture is all about and all the different things that go with it, like whether you're traveling with the team, whatever it could be, getting some gear, because it's hard, especially when you can't pay these guys what a lot of big schools are able to pay people. And so what you want to do is just makes them feel as much a part of the family as anybody. And because there's a lot of talent out there, because we've even went to, like, we got guys that are working for us that don't necessarily want to be involved in football the rest of their life. They want to create ads for Nike or different sports brands. So just really letting them know that if they are able to produce content, especially if you have a good following, like a Twitter page that has over 25,000 people, like they're going to be able to put their work on display, and they're just creating their portfolio. So really sell them not only how they can help us, but really how we can help you. And that's the biggest thing we'd like to get through to them. And I think there are a lot of ways that we can, and I think that we have done. And so continuing to do that is going to be something that I think a great way to really entice people to want to help you out.
Yeah, that's a good point. I know Twitter, Instagram, you guys are probably on. How about TikTok? Have you guys done the TikTok jump yet?
I've heard rumblings. We are not. We are not. Will we be?
It's possible.
Time will tell. Yeah. I see some guys that I coached even at Pitt. All of a sudden, I see them tweeting, "Hey, follow my TikTok page." I guess the boredom's setting in for a lot of people, and these are guys that are just graduating, training for the league now.
Right.
And it's so it could be. It really well could be. All it takes is a couple key influencers who get it going.
It seems like the next curve in all this thing, man. I mean,
I know.
And I'm still behind on Instagram and TikTok. I can scroll through, but I haven't created any content on that. But it's
we have a couple young guys on staff that are on TikTok. I'll call them out right now. Sam Burrow, he's all about it. So when you hear rumblings in our building about it, it's usually him. But, that's about it.
Sounds great, Alex. I appreciate you taking the time, man, to hop on and talk some ball. So, you guys want to get in touch with Alex? There's his Twitter handle there on the site. We'll look forward to touching base here soon.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Doug.
Hey, you bet, Alex.
Take care.